Do you feel that cars now like are just like filled with technology, which is kind of pushing the price up, or do you think it's just the nature of the game?
It depends, but I mean that's where the Chinese automakers are coming in hard and fast, because they are throwing everything in terms of tech and spec into their cars to undercut the bigger
kind of the
brands.
competitors, yeah. Hello and welcome to another episode of the AutoTrader podcast. My name is Wandi and Ané, AutoTrader's brand and PR manager.
And I am Ané Albertse. I am a long-standing member of the team.
Yeah, longer than me. I think you've...
Yeah, 2015.
2015. I think I joined much after that. So, yeah. Anyways, in today's show, we've got 4 incredible segments. We've got a brand new segment called Say What, in which we'll be unpacking an article that was sent to me by the team. And then we got this numbers game because we just released our report. So I think it's, it might be cool to kind of go through some of the results of the reports. And then you were recently in the new Mazda.
Yeah, the Mazda CX-60, or the 1 million rand Mazda, because it's a 3.3 liter diesel, turbo diesel.
Exactly.
With a small little battery and mild hybrid.
You're giving away too much.
I know.
We'll talk about it in this segment, and then we'll wrap up the show within the news, which is another article or rather a thought piece which I thought maybe we can unpack a little bit. So let's drive straight into it. So Lawrence sent me, Lawrence, part of the team, he sent me an article, which was really interesting. I don't know if you've seen this, but currently in South Africa, 25% of all new cars are below 500,000. Everything else is more expensive than that. Only 25%.
They're paying through our noses for new cars.
Yeah, which kind of shocked me. I mean, that's a really low number for the fact that a lot of people kind of benchmark any new car around that price point.
Yeah.
Why do you think that's the case? Or why do you think
Tax. I mean, the taxes we're paying, it's like pushes up car prices by like 40%. So it's just insanity. And also, they've recently done a survey. The company is called, it was an Australian research company, but the takeaway was that Peru, Colombia, and South Africa have the highest car prices in the world.
Yeah. Is this for used cars or just new cars?
No, new cars.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I've obviously, when Lawrence sent me the article, I went and kind of read through what are some of the big reasons. Something that he's pointed out quite extensively is the fact that the cars that we have now, new cars specifically, they're not kind of spec the same way as like before. I mean, you've been sort of reviewing cars for a long time. Do you feel that cars now are just like filled with technology, which is kind of pushing the price up, or do you think it's just the nature of the game?
It depends, but I mean that's where the Chinese automakers are coming in hard and fast, because they are throwing everything in terms of tech and spec into their cars to undercut the bigger
kind of the
brands.
Competitors, yeah.
And South Africans are really going for it. It's yes, we are very brand conscious, but you know how expensive groceries are these days just to feed your family. So people really are looking. We've kind of made this problem for ourselves.
I feel like we've kind of, as consumers, just generally we've made this situation where we're forcing OEMs to kind of put in all of these things inside cars. All of these screens and all these extra things. Yeah. And then when we get the price tag, it's like, whoa. It's a bit too high.
Yeah, that's why South Africans, we want it all. We want new cars, but we still want the Apple CarPlay and the touch screens and everything else.
Yeah, rather give me that and, remove one airbag and I'll take the screen.
No, never.
It's kind of what people are doing. But, I mean, it's kind of shocking. In South Africa, I think bakkies and SUVs are still the most popular.
Yes, and what was interesting about the survey that did the Hilux is very expensive in Australia, but in South Africa, the Ford Ranger is actually one of the cheapest
sort of bakkies.
Yes.
Do you think it's because of this, like the higher spec models that we're getting here versus everywhere else, or do you think it's like?
Well, because it's locally built, it also drives the prices down quite a bit.
Oh yeah, that definitely helps.
Yeah, that does help.
So I did I went to do some digging to see like what comparative cars I could find, and I found that the Volkswagen Polo, which has kind of been a staple in South Africa. A lot of people's first car. You see them everywhere. We love them. But the starting price for one of those was about 350,000 rand.
Yeah, it's steep.
Basic.
It's very steep.
It is, yeah. So, I mean, that put things in perspective for me, and it tells me that's one of the large reasons why people are going into the used car market is because you just have so much like more options.
Also, I mean, a car depreciates the moment you drive it off the showroom floor.
Yeah.
Then it's over.
Yeah.
It's better to just look for a demo or a low mileage new model.
Or like a low mileage used car.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we've done a few articles on exactly that point, and I've seen that you can get, like, as soon as it drives off the dealership floor, I mean, you lose, like, in some cases, like 100,000 Rand immediately.
Yeah, it's insane.
So going for a used car with like 5,000 Ks, for instance, could be the solution to a lot of people's problems.
Yeah, well, I think that's why people are looking at the used car market much more than they are looking at new.
100%.
But it's that whole thing about worry-free motoring for the first couple of years.
Yeah.
I think if you're a student and you're buying a car, of course, there are amazing options in the used car market, but you don't really want that admin.
Okay, do you own a used car? Like, is that your go-to, or do you prefer new?
No, I would never buy a new car.
So you'd never go. I thought you were going to say about never buy a used car. You'd never go.
Used all the way. I'll look for something with low mileage.
Okay, so I was hoping you'd say the other way around, because I'm also the same.
No.
I'd only buy new, like, if it was, like a sports car or something like that. But I'm a huge, like, advocate as well for used cars. It just makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know a lot of people, they want the kind of, the
new car
sense,
style.
the new car style. I think so more than anything else, just kind of the sense of security that you get with it, which is a fair point. But let's see what happens. I think prices are going to be changing. They are changing. COVID's over now, so supply is not really an issue. But interesting story. Let's see how it goes. So we got the numbers game. So obviously, a name, as you know, every year we drop our industry reports. And we just dropped our 2023 one, which covers the annual year of 2023. So a few things have come out of it, and I was hoping to go through some of the key things. Obviously, we'll have George come and unpack a lot of the things that come out of it. But initially, I just want to get your response to some of the things.
Okay.
So top 10 most sold cars. What do you think the model was that sold the most last year?
It's probably a Toyota Corolla Cross.
I mean, in one segment, that is true.
Hang on. Wait, a Toyota Hilux probably.
Okay, so close.
It's a Toyota.
It's a Toyota. Very close. So Toyota did actually sell the most vehicles as a brand.
Okay.
But the most selling model was actually the Ford Ranger.
Are you sure it's not the double cab? Because I know the single cabs, the Toyota Hilux outsold the...
Yeah. No, this is all used cars.
Oh,
it says as a model, the Ford Ranger was the most sold.
Used cars.
Yes, this is used cars.
See. Okay.
Yes. So this was the sort of the it reigned supreme ultimately.
Yeah.
No surprise there from me. I don't know if there's any surprises from you on that result.
Well, no, because it's a very sophisticated bakkie.
Yeah.
That touch
What
screen.
makes a bakkie sophisticated? Like, what do you...
Listen, that touchscreen in the center, I mean, it's slick,
Yeah.
it's easy to use, it's large, it's crisp, the resolution's very, very good. It's a great,
I mean, that's you're referring to specifically this new one, right?
yeah, well, the new generation.
Yeah. But even the older ones, I mean, they were fantastic cars.
Yes, but I mean, the new one, that's just
It's just
changed
a kind of
things
league of its
around.
own. Yeah.
It was light years ahead of its predecessor.
Versus the Toyota Hilux, which has always been historically, its number one competitor. Why do you think this new one is just going to carry on paving the way for, Ford in South Africa, at least?
Well, the new model specifically, or as a whole. No, like I said before, it's very slick. It is. You get into it, and there's just that feeling of quality. It's in the switch gear, the buttons, the soft touch surfaces. It's very family orientated. There's quite a lot of space on the second row. It's a brilliant bakkie to drive. I mean, it doesn't feel like a bakkie. You feel like you're driving a Ford Everest.
Why do you think in South Africa, like bakkies, for instance, the pricing doesn't seem to be much of a factor?
People.
Yeah. Because we have cheaper, like, bakkies, right? Like, there's other options that people can go there, which are a lot cheaper than a Ford Ranger or Hilux, for instance.
Yeah, but just remember that a lot of these vehicles are used in the mining industry, for example.
Yeah. So you want something that's kind of tried and tested.
Yeah, I mean, the Hilux has always been a favorite in the mining industry, but it looks like, I mean, in Northwest where all the mines are, everyone's driving a Ford Ranger.
Yeah.
You just see them everywhere. People love them.
Yeah, it's a fantastic car. And to be honest, I mean, I've been looking at sales in January and February as well. and it seems to still be extremely popular in South Africa.
At the moment, I mean, Ford says, and they've got the numbers to back it up, they are the best-selling double cab. Specifically, double cab, they are, in the new car market, they are outselling the Toyota Hilux double cabs. So
single cab, though, that's where it changes a little bit.
Yeah, that changes a little bit. Also, a lot of the buckets are bought by the government for whatever they need it for.
And they have some thoughts. Okay, moving on. So top 10 most viewed model. What do you think that went to?
Well, it's always, despite our love for SUVs, I know in the past it was the Mercedes-Benz C-Class.
Yeah.
Well, not
spoiler alert.
Volkswagen Golf, obviously.
You just guessed that.
And it's also the BMW 3 Series always features somewhere
for
as
sure.
the most searched for vehicle.
So they were the most searched and viewed for years. But now the Golf seems to be, and the Polo, both of them are just really popular. I think to your point, it's got to do, to the point of the last story that we did with the price of cars right now.
Yeah.
People are not as aspirational as they used to be. I think they're now more realistic.
More sensible.
Exactly. A little more realistic with their wallets. So no surprise there that the Volkswagen Golf and Polo, both of them are so popular. But the Golf took the ranking there. And lastly, before we move on to the next segment, let's talk about EVs. And we're going to unpack EVs a little bit later in the last segment that we have. But let's talk about EV performance. So I think it was about 132% increase in sales of used EVs last year. Is that a surprise to you? Do you see that trend sort of continuing? And what do you think the most sold EV model, that is?
I should have done a bit more research.
Read the reports.
I will. Let's see. It could be a Volvo.
Okay.
Maybe. The C40 is still too new. No, you're going to have to tell me.
Okay, so historically, I think maybe let's go with historically first. Historically, the BMW i3 has been like...
Yeah, it's a brilliant little car.
The one, that everybody loves.
It's great. But it's getting a bit old.
That's the thing, right?
Technology's aging.
It's aging a little bit. And it showed. So for the very first time, the i3 was not the most sold. It was the Volvo XC40 Recharge.
Okay.
Yeah. So you guessed right. I think a large part of that has to do with the price and the fact that it's an SUV, a full SUV. So
it's more like a crossover.
Yeah. But you get that's what South Africa. We love SUVs and love buggies.
It's also quite spacious. I mean, it's a beautiful car. It's easy to drive. It's got a beautiful shape.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lovely car. It's definitely one of my favorites.
I used to tell George that if I had to get an EV, that's the one that sort of tickles me the most.
It's a brilliant car.
Stunning. It's stunning.
And it's fast.
Is it?
Yeah, it's very, very fast. It's got a 0 to 100 in a very...
a ridiculous time,
sub 4 second sprint or something. I could be wrong. I might have to recheck my facts, but it's fast.
That's the EV that got me
and the
perhaps,
best, if you're pulling up at a robot and there's a GTI next to you, and
you can definitely get them.
You could. I'm not saying that you should, but you could definitely take it.
You can definitely play around. Well, that's basically the results from the reports. If you guys want to see the rest of the results from the reports, just I think we'll definitely put in the description if you want to download that. It's totally free, and we go into basically all things sort of used car in the last year. So check it out. It's download. Tell us what you guys think. Is there any surprises? Who knows? Moving on, Ané, into the third segment, This Week in Cars.
Yeah, well, actually last week.
So obviously you were in a brand new Mazda. Yep. Can you please tell us what this Mazda is?
Well, it's...
So the highlights, and then I'll just throw some questions at you and maybe you can answer.
Okay. Well, it's South Africa's first diesel-electric hybrid. So normally most hybrids are petrol.
Yeah.
But it's not a full-fledged one. It's only a mild hybrid system.
So this is the Mazda, what's the official?
It's the CX-60, 3.3 litre all-wheel drive, and it comes in Takumi trim, which is your high-end model. So
Takumi is Japanese for this is, I'm assuming this is when when they get the pursuit of perfection. That's
which is actually Lexus's tagline, but they both use Takumi master craftsmen who have to.
I think it's a term that's kind of used by a lot of Japanese.
It's a Japanese term for doing your best.
Perfection and years of kind of honing your craft.
Absolutely.
So this carries that badge of being a Takumi sort of Mazda product.
And it's a beautiful product. I mean, it's huge. And the CX-60 is, size-wise, it almost competes with the Ford Everest. It's a really like quite a long and voluminous vehicle, and the BMW X3, Mercedes-Benz GLC, Volvo XC60, that kind of vibe.
Yeah,
so it's all of those. Even the Alfa Romeo Stelvio is a competitor.
Okay.
And yeah, it's a brilliant car. It's quite powerful. It's 187 kilowatts and 515 Newton meters of torque. So it's got a lot of grunt.
That's comparable to what? Like for somebody who's not used to like Newton meters. Is that like a Golf GTI sort of numbers?
No, that's a bit more. Let's just say it's got a lot of low end grunt, and you can tow the hell out of a large caravan.
Okay, understood. I mean, it's stunning. When it comes to Mazda, the CX-30 has always been my favorite. Yes. Just because of the size was the big thing for me. This doesn't seem too big, and if you're saying it's X3 size, not necessarily like X5 size. That's kind of comparative. What's the difference between this and a CX-30? Is it just size-wise and the fact that there's a hybrid? Or
well, the CX-30 is actually tiny in comparison.
Okay.
In the middle, you get the CX-5, which is sort of the in between. It slots right in between those. Okay. So the CX-60 is really big. I mean, but instead of having like two cramped seats in the boot that fall down, you actually have a massive boot. I mean, it's huge.
Is there any other competitors that are doing something similar? I mean, this is something you said to me before the show, is that this is the first diesel hybrid.
Yes. Yeah.
So like why is that such a big deal? Is it efficiency wise that's a massive deal? Or?
Well, it's just nobody else seems to be doing diesel electric hybrids.
It kind of seems kind of obvious. Like that's the routes that you'd want to go if you want.
But remember, it's not a full-fledged hybrid. It's mild. So it's a small electric motor that's only good for about 12.4 kilowatts.
Okay.
And a small capacity battery. So it's basically just gives you a bit of boost.
Yeah.
So if you're putting your foot down, there's not really much turbo lag. It just helps you get out of the starting blocks quicker. If you're sitting in traffic, it takes the load off the engine. So it's really like an assistant to the engine. And it's a 3.3 litre inline six, which is nice and powerful. But that just gives you that extra
little bit
kick.
Of edge, yeah.
And it'll also help to make the engine last a lot longer.
For somebody who, so you obviously mentioned a few of the competitors, but why would somebody go for this versus anything else on the market?
Well, that is the big question because it's over $1 million. This car, it's 104,900.
Okay.
So you're looking at competitors. I mean, Honda's just released a 1.5 litre turbocharged CR-V that's also over $1 million, and people are like, "What?"
Yeah.
At least with this, they can understand there's a bit of hybrid technology, and an inline six engine and that sort of thing. But it does compete with some big German names like the BMW X3 and at the same sort of a price point. So time will tell how label conscious South Africans. But also...
But do you get the same sort of performance? I mean, the X3 is not a hybrid, if I'm not mistaken, right? No. So this would give you more efficiency. This would arguably tick a lot of the boxes that the X3 already does. So like what do you think? Do you think it's just going to be the badge sort of thing that people that might
the badge, unfortunately, all sensibility goes out of the window when people see a BMW or a Mercedes.
Sensibility leaves my mind when I see a BMW. So I fully understand that sentiment.
I really hope for Mazda's sake, there's a lot of intelligent technology in this car. For example, there's facial recognition. So when you get inside the car, also you sort of put in your height, and then the cameras and the sensors in the car identify where your eyes are, and it will then adjust your seat and the mirrors, the rear view mirror, everything. And it can store up to like 250 settings for up to 6 people.
Okay.
And the other thing that I really like about this car is there's no touch screen. Everyone's going to be like, oh, what? I want a touch screen if I'm paying over $1 million.
I hate touch screens. So I'm with you there,
Yeah, so it's still got the rotary dial in the middle.
Yeah.
It falls nicely under your left wrist, and then you do everything from there. Yeah. And it's actually because of a safety feature, because Mazda did some research and they said whenever you lean over to push a button, you're inadvertently applying torque to the steering wheel. So you sort of start veering out of your lane.
Exactly,
and come on, we've all actually experienced it.
Yeah.
You're like looking
I love
for
how
something.
you said you apply torque to the steering wheel. That's such a journalist way to say you just turning it.
Yeah, you're touching it in such a way that you're veering out of your lane.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I read an article this morning about how touchscreens and stuff, in terms of the end caps, those are the cars that kind of like have more accidents.
Yes.
So I totally agree that having a more tactile sort of interaction with things is a bit safer.
And also,
but let's see what happens. Yeah.
No, I've forgotten what I want to say.
It's fine if you remember it. We'll maybe bring it up in the next show. But yeah, I mean it's a good car, is what you kind of summarizing.
And you also have the option of voice activation. I mean, as soon as you plug in your phone, the CarPlay or Android Auto comes up immediately.
Exactly
it's wireless as well. And in what I also like about it is it's not as complex. In BMW and Mercedes, you kind of have to really get to know the system really well to use it efficiently, where this is just second nature.
Plug and play, 100%. Well, the article is live on site, so if you want to check that out, or if you have any questions, because Ané has forgotten, please just put it in the comments, and we'll definitely get to those as soon as we can. Okay, moving on, Ané. So we have a last segment called In the News. And I picked up an article that I read, which I only read it because I saw a video on YouTube.
Okay.
But the article was speaking to the fact that the EV hype may be dying.
Yeah.
We're definitely seeing some trends in South Africa. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, sales are still doubling.
Yeah.
But that rate is slowly coming down. So we're still buying more than the previous year. But the speed in which we're doing so seems to be slowing down. Since you have your feet on the ground, what are you seeing? Do you think it was just a hype train that we're going on? Or OEM's probably going to be sort of turning that attention away from EVs? What do you think?
Overseas, it seems to be a bit of a problem in very, very cold temperatures where they are having cold snaps. I mean, the battery takes a while to heat up. And I know that from a political perspective, a lot of the dealers are saying they wish the government would stop forcing and pushing this green agenda of EVs.
Okay.
And I mean, look at BMW. We had a fuel cell vehicle in South Africa not too long ago. That article is also live on AutoTrader. So I think from a practical perspective in South Africa, it's not always the easy way. I mean, you do have a grid cars map, for example, where you can. Okay, let's start by saying this: most people who buy EVs are off the grid.
Yeah.
And they've got their fast chargers at home and everything else. But, the problem does arise when you want to travel a bit further.
Look a bit further away,
and you don't always know whether you're going to get a charger that's offline. I mean, I've looked at charging maps, and it says it's perfectly functional and it's working. And you get there and it's offline.
It's offline, yeah.
So those things make it like a little bit more difficult to live with EVs. But, I mean, if you're just in the city and you're just driving in the city and you know where you're charging.
It makes a lot of sense,
that makes sense. But I think maybe people are thinking...
They want a car not just for the city, but also when I go on holiday.
But also it's a second car. Usually the EV is the second car.
It's not like your primary vehicle.
So they've got a Fortuner in the garage or something else that they use for going away on holiday. But with this whole fuel cell thing coming, it's a lot greener actually. So
hybrids, I think, is the perfect step. I think it's the right direction for a lot of OEMs. That seems to be the best winning solution in terms of addressing sort of green solutions, as well as providing consumers something that they can use for both city driving, where you get sort of those gains.
Absolutely.
But also if you need to go further away.
And also, if you look at the Toyota lineup in South Africa, there's not one EV.
Yeah. Toyota's been one
of them. They've been
they know the market better than any other OEM, and they're the ones who are like, we're not ready for EVs.
Exactly. They're just completely staying away from it because they know in South Africa it's not always practical. So that's why.
So I anticipate that EVs, the doubling effects in terms of sales is going to continue. But to your point, I think it is going to slow down, once all the early adopters are finished. And the rest of us sort of have to come to the party. And I think a big component of that is price. Price, let's be honest. Price is the biggest factor in EV sales, right?
It is. It is very, very expensive.
They are a lot more expensive. But let's see what happens. I think a lot's going to happen soon. But my money's on hybrids. I think hybrids going to
absolutely. And also there's quite a long warranty on the battery, and they take care of after sales. Especially I know that Toyota and Lexus are very big on looking after their people and their batteries.
100%. Okay, well, before I let you leave, Ané, how long have you been working at AutoTrader?
Since 2015.
Since 2015. You did actually mention that early on. So it's been like 8 years.
Yeah.
8, give or take, years.
Yes.
I've been here for 5 years. And just like you and I, obviously there's, new vacancies that come about to come and join our team. So if you're a copywriter, we're currently looking for somebody to come and join our team.
Yes.
And if you meet this criteria, we'll obviously have the link so you can get all the details on that. Please send us your CV, and then you can help us make some of this cool content that we make.
And AutoTrader is a great place to work.
Fantastic place to work, great culture, and you do cool stuff with cars. So join us. We'd love to have you. And that's pretty much all I have for you.
Great.
Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Wandi. Thanks for hosting me.
If you guys like the show, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and engage with us. Tell us what you think. That's all. Bye.
Bye.